Thank you for joining us. I'm here with Dr. Mallika Marshall. In this week's Family Focus, we're talking about toddler tantrums. If you have children, you've been through it. I have a toddler myself, and I'm in the thick of it. So first, let's start with simple. What triggers a tantrum?
Okay, so you have a 2-year-old, right? And he's a bright 2-year-old.
Yes.
But he's still developing language.
Yes.
Right? So like most toddlers, you know, it's most common for kids to have tantrums between the ages of 1 and 3 when they're slowly starting to express themselves, but they don't really have the language to express themselves. So they might be angry, they might be frustrated, they might be hungry, but they have a hard time telling the adult in the room that that's what's going on. So what do? They resort to yelling and screaming and stomping and flopping down on the floor. So it's important to remember that this is completely normal behavior, right?
Good.
Okay, so that's step one.
Good.
And it tends to happen when they're hungry or they're tired or there's been some sort of change in the routine or some sort of transition.
Usually for us, it tends to happen when we tell him to do something that he necessarily doesn't want to do.
Right.
So we can't avoid them. How do we get through it?
Okay, so the most important thing to do is ignore it. As long as they're in a safe environment, like if your child is running down the street, obviously you can't ignore that. You've got to go and get him or her and put him in a safe place. But if you're at home or you're in the car, turn your back. Okay? Just don't acknowledge it. It is not happening in your world. You need to stay calm. You don't want to engage them. You don't want to say, stop doing that. Stop screaming. It's not okay. Don't engage. And certainly don't try to bribe them. Don't say, I'll give you a sippy cup or I'll give you a piece of candy if you please stop doing this behavior, especially because it can be embarrassing in public, right?
Yeah.
So you're in the middle of the aisles of Toys R Us and all of a sudden your child is like lying on the ground, kicking and screaming. Remember, other parents have been there. Just ignore it.
I've been trying the countdown. In 3, 2, 1, look at me, and it doesn't work. Also, don't try to hug him when it's over, which I've been doing. Like, oh, mommy loves you still.
That's right. So some kids, you know, they're screaming and yelling. You don't really want to hug them then, but then they resort to, and they're whimpering and they're crying and tugging on your heartstrings, and your tendency might be to give them a big hug and say, honey, it's okay. Don't do that. Just wait until they've collected themselves and then go right back into the normal activity. Okay, come on, let's go eat dinner. Okay, time to go into the store now.
All right, so when do you know there is a problem?
Okay, so if toddlers are having them increasingly frequently, you know, most toddlers have one, you know, once a week, every few days, but if you're having a child have them multiple times a day, they're increasing in frequency, they're increasing in intensity or becoming violent, like kids are really trying to hurt you or try to hurt themselves, they're throwing and breaking things, then it's time to check in with the pediatrician. Doesn't necessarily mean that anything's wrong with your child, but it might indicate a future behavioral issue. So it's just time to have a conversation.
All right, Dr. Mallika Marshall, always great to have your insight. Thank you so much. Stay with us here on CBSBoston.com, and thanks for watching.